please welcome to the stage who will be moderating the panel, Doug Fritz. Doug is the executive chairman of F2 Strategy. He'll be speaking with Paul Algreen, who is the executive managing director and chief technology officer of Crescent. And finally, Leslie Norman. Leslie is the chief technology officer of Dynasty Financial Partners. Please give him a warm welcome to the stage. Let's hear it.
All right, hello, Future Proof. Thank you, everybody, for having us. This is going to be, I think it's going to be a bit of a fun conversation. The three of us know each other pretty well. And this session, what we want to accomplish in this session, guys, is really, everybody's talking about AI, tons of great vendors, tons of great interest in this. This is driving our industry, so let's all get excited about it. It's good. But what are people actually doing with these technologies today? Right? What is actually happening from the CTO seat? And what can we learn about what is happening, what has worked, what hasn't worked, the progress, and the trajectory going into 2026 in wealth firms from the folks that are actually making the decisions and accountable for those outcomes. And that's why I'm just stoked to have Leslie and Paul with us today. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this, hopefully. And it should be a little bit of fun, I think, as well, right? So I'm going to start off. We're going to talk about all the things I just mentioned. But AI is, while it's cool, there are still people involved in this industry. So Leslie, just kind of share with the audience a little bit of your background, where you work, what you do, and maybe a little bit of how you currently use AI at Dynasty, and then same thing to you, Paul.
All right, let's go. Hey, everyone. I am Leslie Norman, Chief Technology Officer at Dynasty Financial Partners. I lead technology and innovation for our platform, which powers a nationwide network of really elite RIAs. Collectively managing around $110 billion in AUA. I spent my career, it's been dedicated to financial advisors, and after leading large-scale transformation at a Fortune 500, I found my home at Dynasty. And so a little bit about what we're doing with AI. There's really two pieces, right? There's what we're doing on the advisor technology front. And just to put our tech stack into perspective for you, we have really an opinionated core of best-in-class technology as we see it. And then from there, we have also invested in building an integrated experience that creates a wrapper around these powerful platforms so that we can deliver a single pane of glass to our advisors. So on that front, we've actually been able to incorporate a generative AI layer into our Client 360 experience. So think about that as pulling together the essential information from planning, from reporting, from your TAMP, from billing, right? All into a single view. And then through generative AI, being able to deliver a chat experience on top of that. We also, our network benefits from the AI capabilities and all those partner tools that I mentioned. And then secondly, from an internal perspective, we have deployed a number of secure LLMs in addition to Copilot. Because we are a Microsoft shop, it's a really powerful capability that pulls in from SharePoint. And I don't know if any of you guys have used the email coaching feature in Copilot that's like, hey, you should look at the tone of this email, or maybe you want to be a little bit more descriptive. I'm like, okay, fair, Copilot, sure. But that's another really powerful piece of the stack.
Love it. All right, Paul.
All right, I'm Paul Algreen. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Crescent. We're about a $75 billion AUM RIA wealth manager with a multifamily office attached. Headquartered out of Chicago, but also several offices around the country. The growth has been pretty crazy at Crescent. We started, when I started there 4 years ago, we were 12 billion in AUM. So I think what we can talk about today a little bit is the perspective of, so how do you bootstrap, even if you're maybe a little on the smaller scale, and start to get your feet wet with AI, how do you start to bring these in? And then also once you start to get some infrastructure and some scale, how can you really start to get some business outcomes that you're looking for? I'll let you sort of lead the questions and talk about our tech stack in a little bit and go from there.
But I think, Paul, you left something off your description a little bit. Was something happened last week? I mean,
I was in San Francisco for some work.
No, so Paul was awarded the CTO of the Year award in the wealthmanager.com awards last Thursday.
Give it up.
Congratulations, Paul. Very well deserved. And I didn't even know this. I have you on stage 5 days later. Awesome. And so as human and cool as AI is, this can get really dry. Not that CTOs aren't the coolest people in the organization, but I thought it'd be just take a chance just to kind of throw you guys the curveball question a little bit, because we are sitting here on stage in California. I'm not a native of California, but I spent some time here. And neither of you live in California. So when you guys think about California and the beach and this amazing scene, what is your favorite like movie, TV show reference kind of thing that like centers on California? When you think about Huntington Beach, like what's the show or like the entertainment thing that you resonate most with? Paul, you go first.
Well, I went for a walk on the beach this morning, and there's an insane amount of amazing surfers in that beach, in that surf. I don't know if you guys have paid attention. So the only thing I can think of is Point Break.
Oh, it's a good one.
Patrick
Good one.
Swayze, Keanu Reeves.
That's good.
I can't think of the woman's name, but that's a classic.
That's a good one. I was thinking the same thing. All right, Leslie, you next.
All right, so this might be a little bit sacrilegious. I'm a Floridian who does not really like the beach. I don't know, my suntan from yesterday, my burn, I should say, is evidence of that. But I think I'll go in a non-beach direction and say Entourage.
That's a good one. It's not entirely beachy. That's true. I was thinking about that because I moved to California in 2006, and I think I'd been in California like twice in my entire life. And I moved from North Carolina to California, and I swear every TV show I see, no matter where it's filmed in California, kind of looks like this. So I showed up literally like with like shorts and a tank top, thinking it was going to be Baywatch. It was San Francisco, and I had no idea that like San Francisco wasn't this. I was very disappointed, and I had a lot of sweaters and puffy jackets after that. Awesome. So let's get into it. And we're going to have some questions at the end, too. So I think really looking forward to questions from the audience. I can't think of two better executives to talk about the use of AI than Leslie and Paul. So if you've got questions about this topic, please, I think fill in on the app some of the questions. So let's get into it first. So the first question really is around that sort of process of deploying AI. I mean, this technology is new to the industry. You both have deployed it, but the journey from going to not deploying it to starting to engage with it, starting to bring it into your firms, there's risk associated with it, right? You're accountable for the spend on the technology. Talk to me about like that process a little bit about going into AI. What did you consider? How was it? Were you worried? Like, some of that early process, because a lot of firms are using it in the advisory space, several are not. It could be helpful to people to know how to get started. Leslie.
All right, I'll go first. So our journey with AI, actually, it started 3 years ago because our team has always believed that really the holy grail for advisors is being able to chat in natural language with your client data, asking questions and getting insights. So around 3 years ago, we did a proof of concept for AI chat, and frankly, the technology just wasn't there yet. It's a POC that we ended up shutting down. But fast forward, commercially available AI has gotten way better in the last really like 6 to 8 months. And we knew the intersection of that improvement with the investment that we had made in our data lakehouse over the course of the last 3 years meant the time was right to be able to provide that chat experience. So we actually didn't start off with an internal use case. We went hard at putting the chat layer on top of our client data, and that's really where we began. We also, like I said, introduced Copilot. But I think in terms of challenges, we've actually recently made a structural change as a result of some of the things that we experienced in the beginning. As you all know, the space is changing really, really quickly. And what is new and innovative today is obsolete tomorrow. And we just knew that we needed to separate innovation from production and have super, super smart people casing the competitive landscape and figuring out how to future-proof our stack. So it's why we created Dynasty Labs to act as a dedicated innovation arm in our business and to be really focused on AI so that we could have folks continuing to chip away at the rest of the integration ecosystem, which, as we all know, still has room for improvement. There's still a ton of wood to chop. So we've really created this arm that will work in concert with our product and engineering team to be able to use AI as a way, not the way, but but a way to solve some of the problems that exist in terms of integrations across the ecosystem.
Awesome. Paul.
So for us, we took a pretty big step back, and we tried to think about what do we want to do with AI, right? This feels different. So for those of you who have thought about technology, like, I'm a history buff for technology and have seen some history with technology. And if you think about the 80s, the PC revolution, the internet revolution in the 90s and dot-com era, and then the cloud, the move to the cloud, mobile revolution, each of these sort of technology transformations were accompanied with a lot of resistance, right? They were transformations that people like me had to really push. And I've sat in front of boards and said, we need to move to the cloud, we need to move to the internet, we need to do these things. And they'd say, no, it's not safe, you can't do it. And what's different about AI is just the exact opposite. Everyone is here because you believe that AI is going to do something amazing for your business. And so we're feeling the pressure of that, right? And so when you've got that kind of demand and that kind of FOMO really driving decisions, we thought we need to be really deliberate here, and we need to be thoughtful. And at Crescent we like to say slow is fast, which it comes from, for us it comes from racing. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And so we took a lot of time up front with our executive team, coaching them on how to be leaders around AI, how to understand it, how to think about it. So if you don't have that, and it's IT pushing an agenda, or it's technology pushing an agenda, or people just sort of experimenting and playing, you're going to be one of those people. I don't know how many people saw that report that came out of MIT where 95% of all AI projects fail, right? And you're going to be one of those 95%, right? So we want to be in the 5%. So how are we going to attack this? Get the leadership involved. And then number two, make sure you've got a strategy for how you're going to get your users involved, because AI is, you can think about it from all these use cases and all these different products, vendors. No offense to all the vendors in the audience, if you're out there. You're doing a great job building and creating solutions, but we need our team to understand AI, be AI fluent. There's no one in this audience who doesn't understand mobile. In fact, about 2/3 of you are on your mobile device right now while I'm talking.
They're recording and taking pictures.
And that's okay, that's okay. But how many of you really feel like you understand how to build a custom GPT? Or how much of your teams know how to build a custom GPT? And so we knew that the second thing, besides getting our leadership involved, was making sure our people were going to be trained up, know how to use these tools, and we were putting the tools safely in their hands. And so those were really the first two big steps we took, just because we feel like the innovation, the transformation, and at the end of the day, if you think about GPT, does everybody know what GPT stands for? Does anybody know? Most people don't, it's okay. Generative Pre-trained Transformer. All it is a technology. It's generating new content based on pre-trained data and transforming it in a way that uses context. And the pre-trained part of it is what we think is the most important part at Crescent, because we're sitting on our advisor's experience, right? Our advisor's data, the CRM, these things that are going to create the responses, the outcomes, the tools that will really drive better business outcomes. So I'll stop because I've been speed talking for about 5 minutes. But what I would say is, start slow. Start ease into it, because that's what's worked for us. It's really been transformative in terms of the number of people really embracing AI in our firm.
You made another point that I want to build on, because obviously leadership alignment is important, but there was another study that we reference a lot. I think it was called the first 1,000 days of ChatGPT, and it shows squarely that when AI is just driven top down at organizations, those projects fail. And so it's really, really important to create a culture around AI at your firm. It's one of the, again, going back to labs, creating cross-functional AI teams so that we can make sure we understand how some of this commercially available AI can move the needle in their workflows that they are most familiar with. And creating discipline around feeding that knowledge back into the business is really, really critical as well.
All right, I did promise you guys I was going to ask questions that were off script, so the first one, not surprisingly, is after the first question. So in both cases, right, as technology leaders, now there's an accountability to, not to say no, but to restructure the pressure coming down from executive leadership in to either tampen or control, or not to play defense, but like, hey, y'all, like we can't transform everything. What have you found to work in that pushback? These are a lot of it could be private equity, it could be executive leadership, folks that have historically not been pushing us to go faster in certain areas to spend more money. Like, what has worked to countervail that force?
I like to tell our leaders that anything is possible with enough time and money. But to that end, we are really, really focused on executing against goals. We hold ourselves accountable to being really specific about what we need to accomplish, but at the same time, creating space for innovation. And the way that you manage and measure success in innovation is not always just a bottom line impact, right? You also have to measure your ability to try and fail fast. And so I think when it comes to creating a culture of understanding and really buy-in on innovation, you have to convince the senior leadership team that you're not just going to go put some nerds over in the basement and let them vibe code or whatever they feel like working on, right? It's about working on serious problems, but just creating a new way for teams to do that and measuring the impact. I think that's really important too.
Yeah, I think you want to develop something that's purpose fit for your firm, right? So if you're a small firm, you can kind of just sort of make sure you have some informal process that governs it. If you're getting to be a little larger, at our scale, we have an AI review team that meets, monthly, and then there's to your point, the bottoms up sort of groups that meet. Each group has an AI champion, so we have an AI champions team that sort of, is ideating and sharing ideas, and then making sure that you're really, exploiting the ideas that really are having value. We use our internal tools like Teams, or if you have Slack or something like that, to communicate and create energy around it. And then celebrating the wins, right? So that's where you really want to bring the leaders in to make sure that they're coming in and focusing on those, and buy the T-shirts and do the fun stuff, because most of the time, this is a little bit extra work, right? If people are in their day-to-day operations doing their thing, we're asking them to do more, to experiment with AI and take on these new things. And so it's good to sort of reward those who are taking some extra time.
Cool, love it. Cool, so next set of questions here. Now that you've got the AI working in your company, there's a trajectory, you're implementing and improving and sort of integrating this alongside trading and CRM and data and all the other things you got on your plate. What has been the impact, the business impact that you've seen in the business, like the evidence of not being part of the 95% of failed projects, right? Of the 5%, what have you seen as a business that is sort of a direct derivation of the investment and the energy into AI?
I'll go first. So I know everybody is dying for KPIs around on margin expansion. I think the reality is that we're early, and that is analysis that will follow. But I will tell you, the observation that I have in speaking with extremely elite, smart, sophisticated advisors, when I show them the digital assistant that we've created and the way that it can not only help them serve more clients, but actually level the playing field for delivering service for your tier 1 clients in the same way that you deliver service for your tier 3 clients, et cetera. They tell me it brings tears to their eyes. It's so exciting. And so from my seat, seeing that level of emotional reaction and excitement about the possibility, it means we're working on the right thing. But at the same time, understanding that we have to be measuring the business impact of everything we do, I think there is a clear efficiency play that we're all extremely keenly aware of, and especially from Dynasty corporate side, understanding that AI allows you to do more with the same, right? It's something that we absolutely anticipate will support margin expansion.
Yeah, and one of the things that short answer is too early to tell. Right? I think it's hard to we're just so early. You said 6 to 8 months.
I don't think tiers kind of acts as a KPI. I think you could have a, tiers KPI, like how many tiers equals.
How many tiers?
The ROI or ROT, return on tiers.
Ones.
Yeah, but so I think what we're trying to do is, as we go into 2026, right? As you start to create these foundations and put these things in place, think about like how your business goals, how your metrics are going to, benefit from AI, and make sure that you find a way to do the partial derivative, right? To understand how it's contributing to those goals, because it's not easy, right? When we think about, our NPS, like, so each of the business goals, like NPS, right? Our client satisfaction, like, as we're going through each of these, like, how do we ask the right questions and think about the ways that, what are the things that we're doing with AI that's truly delighting the client and creating, a more sticky client, or doing those things. And then making sure that we've got, if we don't have a hard quantitative metric, right, qualitative metrics with our advisor team, to, have them help us attribute how much these investments are creating value. On the cost side, we're really being deliberate about our resource planning for the future, to think about, how AI is influencing it, and thinking about maybe not so much cost savings, but cost avoidance as we scale and as we grow, and as we're taking on new share of wallet for clients, like, and how we're bringing that into the teams and making sure it fits into our overall model.
So what hasn't worked? Maybe the way that you were thinking it would work. KPIs, regardless of KPIs, like, what is something maybe you thought would deliver some value, and then you checked it out, kind of like the chat stuff you started with, Leslie, like. And not to say, well, we're going to talk a little bit later about things to avoid, and there's some questions in the audience, so really good questions, by the way, while they're coming in. So whoever's asking them, good job. But just maybe what didn't work. What was like that didn't work exactly as I thought.
These questions coming in are not layups, I would just like to say, for the record. But as far as what hasn't worked, I'll list off a few things. AI is predictably unpredictable. Like, and to use a super nerd term, like, it's non-deterministic. So with traditional code, it's like, if this, then this, and you can test it, and the same thing happens over and over and over again, and we like that in technology. But you wouldn't believe how much tuning it took to get our AI assistant to stop suggesting to wish a client a happy birthday 2 months after the birthday, right? Like, AI doesn't do well with time all the time. And so I think that's a challenge, and something that we've been able to respond to. The other piece of it, it's sort of related, is speed and context. Both of those things are really, really important, right? Like, there are AI tools out there that take 15 seconds to respond to a basic client question. Like, I don't know about you, but I've moved on with my life after 15 seconds. So it's, for me, where we're able to actually, on our side, use our data lake and pre-process information in order to deliver faster results, but also the context that AI really needs to deliver comprehensive results. Because the reality is, a lot of the models out there, like, cannot accept the full history of client data. And, like, sometimes that's okay for certain use cases. That's what you have to get into as you're using these tools. But sometimes it's not. And so you really need to understand the provider's data strategy, your data strategy, and what the path is to getting all the rich context that you need into AI.
Yeah, I would agree with all those. I think, really making sure the data is clean and driving it in a way that's very purposeful. Otherwise, things can go wrong very quickly. I think the other thing, and it just goes back to the human element of it, is just really, again, training the people and making sure that they understand that, all these large language models are prediction engines, and they're right 99 or not even 95, ChatGPT 5, 95% of the time. Like, so 5% of the time it's making a mistake. 5%, like, that's not acceptable for our clients. I'm sure it's not acceptable for yours. And so how do you train your users to handle that 5% error rate, right? Make sure that you have quality control processes in place if you've got an automated process. How do you have the advisors and their teams trained to make sure that they're doing a proper review and not just rubber stamping stuff before an email goes out or before a deck goes out? Because, I mean, that's bad news, right? And so we're really laser focused. And so from a business outcome, I think we were all maybe a little bit more optimistic than we should have been in terms of thinking that this stuff would just, like, work, but it, we're learning how to work with it in a way that still creates tremendous amount of productivity. I mean, makes us so much more powerful than we were, but you still just got to do a little bit of work.
I want to build on that too. There's this term that we've been using a lot at Dynasty. It's appropriate reliance. And it applies beyond just financial services. It's how, as humans, we start to learn what you should use AI for and what you should trust your own judgment on, and what it's good at, what it's not. I think for us, really the core principle that we follow is human in the loop. You guys have heard that expression a lot, right? But you don't actually necessarily have to be an AI expert and know all the things that it's great at and what it's not good at. But if you follow this foundational principle of human in the loop, which is how we design technology, and I think a lot of others are thinking about it in the space, it's a way to make sure that the human element of judgment, which is still absolutely critical as we're servicing these client relationships, is at the table.
And so I'm just going to build on that a little bit because I think
We're building on each other's.
we're just going to
who's
keep building.
moderating this.
It is, we're still early innings, right? We're still in the early innings of these foundational models. We're still figuring out how to use these tools. There are some emerging players. I see somebody sitting in this audience. I won't name drop them because I think that's inappropriate for a forum like this. But they're out there. Look for them, who are starting to create, really usable middle layers, like tools that will help keep you a little safer, and that sort of keep you from having, to this. What was your term again? I forgot already.
Appropriate reliance.
Appropriate reliance.
Google it.
Where I like it. Where you can sort of just. You can rely on the tool with a little bit more certainty, right? No tool is foolproof. You always want to, check your work, but start looking for these, because I think those are going to be if I were to predict the technology providers that are going to start to get real traction, it's less on these sort of vertical use cases. It's more in these sort of platform fabric plays that are going to start to really make it easy for us all to use this with, a lot more speed, efficiency, and confidence.
Love it. That's awesome. Can I moderate now? Can I?
Just chatting up here, Doug.
I love it. Okay, let's kind of look forward. It's whatever it is, September now of 25. We're thinking about 2026 and where you're both going with AI in your firms. Like, without giving away all the secrets, but like, what are you really thinking about in terms of where it's going? What projects and types of things are you going to be taking on next year? Like, where does this go? Paul, you can go first.
All right. So for us, we feel like we have our foundations in place, and we kind of skipped over it earlier, but I can't say enough about making sure you've got really strong policies in place, where people understand. I think the most common question we had when we started to roll out these tools was, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I not do that? And it was overwhelming at first. And so the more you can front run that and just make sure people really understand how to use these tools, like that is a foundation that you can't skip over, right? Because otherwise, either people are going to be hesitant to use it, or worse, they're going to use it wrong.
Did you come up with your own policies? Or did you guys source? Is there like an industry source for policies?
We couldn't find anything that was sort of a template out there standard. So we did hire outside counsel to come in and help our compliance team, because trust me, your compliance teams don't know about, they're at a conference right now trying to figure out how to advise us, right? So, I think, definitely accept that you don't know, and then just start trying to figure it out what's right for your risk appetite, what works in your firm. But get help, right? I think help is good in this area. But so then going forward, like when we think about having this foundation in place now, it sounds like we're in a pretty similar place. We've got these tools out there. We have RAG, which is a fancy word for sort of knowledge, or data trained GPTs that sort of already have access to our data lakes and can do some stuff. So, be looking for, taking advantage of that, where, the user doesn't have to do as much heavy lifting up front. They don't have to load documents. They don't have to load things into their GPTs. They can just get going. So for us, that's really putting, more acceleration on those efforts. And then, of course, everyone's favorite term, agentic AI. I think we're starting to test and learn there. What I would say is, given that error rate, and sort of lack of tooling around really good agentic quality controls, we're still in the watch and learn and just test in some very benign use cases where there's zero risk of client harm. Or
what would just hypothetically, what some of those use cases would you be using?
Internal ones, finance, HR recruiting. I'm just kidding. Don't do HR recruiting. That's a joke. Please don't do HR recruiting. Really just trying to find the ones that are, internal and don't have as much client risk associated with them, I guess is how I'd say that.
All right, Leslie, 2026.
2026. Yeah, so a big focus for us is, as you said, like taking our virtual assistant and adding on agentic experiences. So as we think about, Dynasty's position kind of in the center of the ecosystem for our clients, we have the ability to orchestrate workflows using our generative AI layer as the start, but then really kicking off key work across the ecosystem. And it's something that's, I think, really important. Another reason we created Dynasty Labs, because if anyone thinks that they're going to, as a single firm, be able to solve all of the challenges that exist in our industry from an integrations perspective, like, they're completely wrong. And so we are really focused in 2026 on partnership, looking at firms who are innovative, who are nimble, who know what they're doing, and are able to build with us towards really a super comprehensive digital assistant. So that's really important. I think the other thing, less on the build side, but just more around building a culture of AI at our firms. It's something that we are really putting a formal process around, so that we can make sure at every level of the organization, folks understand how to interact with AI, what to use it for, what not to use it for, and make sure that folks feel comfortable implementing a technology that absolutely will make them more efficient in their work.
Awesome, love that. That's fantastic. So let's ask kind of the last question, and I do want to get some of these audience applied questions because they're actually quite good. In terms of just AI and like what you guys have done so far, we've talked a little bit about the risks of failed projects. We've talked about not leading into agentic until you've got the data right and you're actually taking action on the data systematically. What are some of the other risks that you see that you're managing or you're worried about, or things that you think the audience kind of in general should just be cognizant of and a little bit concerned about in terms of use of AI as in the industry, but also in your firms?
Has anyone read Ethan Mollick's book called Co-Intelligence? Yeah. It's a good one. I would suggest it. But he says that if you haven't had at least one minor crisis and 3 sleepless nights as you've gotten to know AI, you're not as familiar with it in the way that it really can change the world. So if you want to talk more about that over drinks, we actually can, but I'll bring it back into financial services and wealth. I think some risks that exist are making sure that you've got a solid process for trying and failing fast, and understanding where you have opportunities to innovate and push the needle, and where you absolutely cannot accept any risk, because the 5% with AI is real. And I think as an industry, a risk that we have is creating a more fractured experience for advisors if we're not all laser focused on partnership and integrations. Because AI is a really, really powerful tool, but we have to make sure that we're connecting the pieces and coming from the seat of the advisors and the experience of our clients to make sure that everything comes together seamlessly.
Awesome, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't add too much to that. I agree with pretty much those as the top risk. I mean, I think maybe the other thing would be probably 2 things. One, focus, right? It's sort of a corollary to what you were just saying. I think just really, focus on the things on your business challenges, the ones that matter the most. Because, again, there's a 1,000 AI shingles here if there's one. And so focus on the ones that matter to you and to your business, and really try to figure out who's using AI to help you do that better, or to do it better yourself. And then I wouldn't ignore the ethical side of AI. I think there's, your staff is probably, or your teams are going to be nervous about it. We're nervous about it, about what it's going to mean for us and for our teams. And we can it's going to be okay. But I think it's important to acknowledge that people may be feeling some fear about this and what it's going to mean for their futures. And one of the big things we're talking about is if we are hiring less in the junior ranks, who are going to be the advisors of the future, right? And so maybe we should start talking about that now, right? And so I think those are good things. We're in California, so I'd be remiss not to talk about the carbon footprint of AI. I think those are things your staff may be thinking about. And so have a conversation, right? And just talk about, do we want to do anything there that helps us to think about, these are very compute intensive work, right? And so what is that going to mean for the future? So those are mine.
I'll add one more thing as I'm thinking about the audience. The other piece of the equation too, as you're looking at the vast number of AI solutions that are on the market, it's really important to understand how those tools are using your client data. And it's not enough now just to get back the answer. Your data is not being used to train the model. Like, there are layers to that question, and if you don't know what questions you should be asking, you need to find a partner who can help you get to a level of certainty and confidence in the way the data that you're feeding into AI is being used throughout, the ecosystem. So that's a really, I think, an important risk and something that folks need to educate themselves on if they're in a seat of leadership from a technology perspective, and or work with folks who can help you get to the right answer.
So we're going to go to questions from the audience here in a second. The one I wanted to add to that was I'm starting to hear, and not see as much, but starting to hear, and it worries me, is that firms that have not been really addressing overall infrastructure maturity of their technology stack in wealth management, and they haven't built quality data architectures to rely on to feed their data into for anything from just sort of content GPT stuff off their data, or anything agentic or moving things forward. They haven't done the work of putting their data together, and they're looking at this AI shiny thing and saying, well, screw it, I'm just going to hop over all that data stuff, and I'm just going to have the AI. And and I've been on calls with vendors that have said this, is you don't need to worry about your data quality. The AI will know your data quality. I'm shaking heads over here.
That don't work.
All right.
Don't work.
I generally shake my head here, but I'm also dang, 5 years ago, we didn't even know AI was going to be this good. Maybe they're right. But I think for the next 5 years, I think there is a risk that people don't address their data quality, and then there are an entire soup of problems because they have no idea what this generating or going back to fix it. So.
Yeah, and an interesting observation that I've had, I've never seen so much interest and excitement around CRM usage across advisors as I have with AI. It's always been, a push in some cases to instill these processes, but people can see the tangible benefits of rich client context, which comes from a solid CRM culture and foundation. So it's an interesting push back to CRM as a way to deliver exceptional client service, and all those details that you want to make sure you're hitting in every single conversation with your client. You've got to have them stored somewhere, right? And so CRM is definitely coming into the picture from that end.
Love it. Now it's automatically populated from the client conversations.
Magic.
It's automatic. All right, Paul, I want you to pick one of our questions. I'm going to give you you can pick one of the questions to answer, then Leslie, you answer the second one once the NASDAQ logo goes away.
Wait, I'm picking and she has to answer?
No. That would be awesome. I didn't think about that.
Okay.
You want to do that?
I
PTO
do.
of the year, you can pick the
Oh,
question
yeah.
and answer it.
I'm never going to live this down. Okay. I like the, if an advisor uses AI to prepare notes or meeting agendas, how transparent should they be with their clients?
Should they tell their clients they're being recorded and kind of where that
It's
goes?
a good one. I mean, there's so much AI happening now, so, how do you do that? I mean, our short answer to that is, from a regulatory standpoint, we don't think when we're using AI as an internal tool to prepare things that we need to necessarily disclose that any more than we do in our current electronic communications agreements and the things that we already disclose through our ADV. But what I would say is, every advisor knows their client best, and if your clients might be sensitive to you using AI, then I'd be transparent, right? And so I think I would trust the advisor to know their clients best on that question, but check with your firm, because your firm may have more strict policies about how to disclose.
That's a good one.
All right. So the question is, what are some myths about AI and financial services that you would like to dispel? Well, I think we talked before about garbage in, garbage out, and that AI cannot work well without good data. At least not as of now. So that's one. And I think the other thing that we're looking really hard at is AI. I mentioned this earlier. AI is not the right solution to every problem. And when you're looking at integration mechanisms, right? You've got APIs, you've got files. AI does offer another path, but it's not always the best one. So as you're making decisions about technology, like sometimes custom code still makes more sense. And so I think that it's really important to have folks in the right seat in your technology organizations who can help architect from a tech standpoint, but also from a business architecture standpoint. It's going to become more and more critical in the coming years.
All right, you guys are rock stars. I really appreciate it.
That was fun.
It's great to be on stage with you guys. And thank you. Great questions to the audience as well. Round of applause for our CTOs. And thank you, Future Proof.